For more, let's go to London. Andrew Dowling, a senior lecturer in Hispanic Studies at Cardiff University, author of The Rise of Catalan Independence. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
You're very welcome.
Pedro Sanchez's gamble thus pays off. Is it precarious, a 3-vote majority, or is this a government that will last?
I think it's going to be a government that's going to be subject to a lot of pressure. You rightly note that it hasn't got a strong majority. So I think we're going to see a lot of pressure internally in the parliament by those conservative and right-wing forces that have been defeated. And I think we can also anticipate that there'll be continued pressure in the street. Perhaps this particular phase will continue for a few weeks and then fizzle out. But whenever there are what are deemed to be controversial issues for Spanish conservatives, I think we will see a double-pronged attack in that sense within the parliament and also activity on the streets.
Because that's been Sanchez's argument. We're bringing in those Catalan separatists under the banner of Spain, and therefore, in the end, this will all be a storm in a teacup. Is that how it's going to play out, though?
Well, again, it kind of depends where you're standing. I think in one sense, realistically, Catalan independence is off the agenda in any meaningful sense for the next few years. So you can argue, and I think it's not unreasonable to argue, that what Sanchez has done has kind of solved, at least temporarily, a big political problem. But the problem is, and you kind of see it in the street, and you know, people speaking with a very strong language, like Pedro Sánchez is a traitor, etc. Concessions to Catalan independence is seen as like a red rag to a bull, because there is nothing more sacred in Spanish politics than Spanish unity. So Pedro Sánchez is perceived by conservative Spain to be selling out the country. So, you know, there isn't a simple answer, a black and white answer to that question. It depends where you're standing.
We've talked a lot about the amnesty for those who organized the 2017 banned independence referendum in Catalonia. Perhaps less talked about is it also includes big debt forgiveness for the Catalonia region. Is that what's going to stay in voters' minds longer?
But potentially, I think one of the major causes that fed into the push for Catalan independence has been a grievance around the fact that, from their point of view, they pay in much more to Madrid than they receive in return. So this particular aspect of the deal responds to part of that. But the problem is, with all of these things, you've got one single pot in Spain. So inevitably, more for Catalonia is a zero-sum game, which has to mean that other regions, poorer regions, because Catalonia is rich, poorer regions will receive less. So it's always been and will continue to be a kind of like controversial and polemical issue about where does the money go, who contributes and who gets what in return.
Andrew Dowling, are the Conservatives right that Sanchez is in a way reviving the fortunes of the separatists who in the last regional elections did not do well?
Well, I think Catalan independence in terms of politically, in terms of electoral results, has actually been on a downwards trajectory. So I think also that, one of the things that has been very strongly argued in Catalonia amongst pro-independence forces is that Spain is not a true democracy. You will often see the kind of the hashtag on social media, Spain is a fascist state, etc., etc. If Spain is a fascist state, why is it making these major concessions? So I think what Pedro Sánchez is doing is actually de-escalating the political situation, which makes it much harder for the forces of Catalan independence to kind of convey this dark image of Spain. So I think it will mean for the foreseeable future that it's not a meaningful challenge to Spain.
He's proven he's a political survivor. This is happening as Spain holds the rotating presidency of the European Council. We have EU elections coming up. And Spain's a big player. Spain's Social Democrats are a big player when it comes to trying to get big, important posts in the next European Commission. Does this election and the way it's played out, does it strengthen or weaken his hand at the EU level?
Well, I suppose, the next EU elections are next spring and they're quite a long way off. And I think we all know that so many things can happen between now and then. But I think Pedro Sánchez will want, if you want this particular conflict to kind of like settle down, to be no longer a major issue for Spaniards, and will hope that he can be an electoral beneficiary of a calmer Spain that once we get to those European elections. But I think because, it's basically more than 6 months off, it is very hard to predict the landscape politically when that comes. But that's his first major electoral test. So that will be where we will get a real sense of what Spaniards think about all of this in electoral terms.
Andrew Dowling, many thanks for joining us from London.
You're welcome.
Stay with us, much more to come, more news plus the day's business and sports.